they've done it before. Libya, 1986. Iraq, 2003. Syria, 2014. Whenever America decided the Middle East needed reshaping, it was reshaped. Governments fell, borders moved, maps were redrawn in boardrooms before the bombs even dropped. But there is one country that has sat at the center of American and Israeli targeting lists for decades now, and it is still standing. Not just standing, untouched. Every invasion attempt in the last 600 years has failed. Not some, not most, every single one. Romans, Arabs, Turks, the British Empire at the height of its power. They all came, they all left, and Iran's borders didn't move a single inch. That should bother you, because it means there's something about this country that the world's most powerful militaries, across 6 centuries, couldn't figure out. Today, we're going to figure it out. And by the end of this, you'll understand why Iran isn't just hard to conquer. It's almost impossible, and why the people who want to bring it down already know that. The gift Iran never asked for. Before Iran built a single missile, before it trained a single soldier, nature had already built its defenses. Iran is, in the most literal sense, a fortress, not a metaphor, a physical fortress, with walls. On the south and southwest, the Zagros mountain range runs like a spine, a chain of peaks that makes ground invasion from Iraq or the Persian Gulf nearly suicidal. These aren't hills. In the northwest, facing Turkey, they rise so high and so steep that the border they create is almost physically impossible to cross with a military force. Where the mountains end on the Iraq side, something arguably worse takes over: marshlands. Where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet, the ground turns into a swamp. A natural moat, positioned exactly where an invading army would need to march. To the north, where the Caspian Sea meets Azerbaijan, the Alborz Mountains take over. To the east, a ribbon of smaller ranges wraps around the border with Afghanistan and Pakistan. And to the south, the Persian Gulf itself, the final wall. But here's what most people miss. If you somehow manage to land on Iran's southern coast from the sea, you are immediately facing mountains that rise up to 1.5 kilometers high and stretch 250 kilometers inland. There is no easy approach. There is no soft underbelly. Inside all of this, 2 massive deserts make the interior nearly uninhabitable. Iran's 90 million people are packed into the mountain edges and valleys, which means any invading army that breaks through the outer shell still has to hunt down a population scattered across ancient mountain terrain that was built for defense long before anyone was defending it. There's something deeply unsettling about this geography when you sit with it, because it means Iran's strength isn't something it built. It was given, and that gift has protected it from every empire that's ever existed. The question is, what does a country do when nature makes it untouchable? It gets dangerous. There is a narrow strip of water, roughly 33 kilometers wide at its tightest point, that holds the entire global economy hostage. Most people have never thought about it. Most people don't even know its name. Iran does. The choke point. It's called the Strait of Hormuz. And if you want to understand why no country, not America, not Israel, not any coalition of the two, can simply deal with Iran the way they've dealt with others, this is where the conversation starts. Look at the Persian Gulf on a map. The entire northern coastline belongs to Iran. Just Iran. The southern coast is split between 7 countries: Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman. 7 nations sharing what one nation controls from the other side. At the mouth of the Gulf, Iran forms a V shape on the northern bank, 3 sides of natural elevated control. The opposite bank, Oman's side, is a narrow pointed strip extending only about 50 kilometers into the strait. The geometry tells you everything. Iran can close this waterway. It always could. And after the strikes, it finally has. The statement has already been made publicly. Any vessel moving toward Hormuz risks being destroyed. That is not a military threat. That is an economic weapon aimed at the entire world. What passes through that strait? 20% of the world's oil, 90% of Qatar's gas exports, roughly 5% of the entire global economy. Iran doesn't need a nuclear weapon to bring the world to its knees. It needs to close one corridor 33 kilometers wide, the coastline nobody's talking about. Beyond Hormuz, Iran holds 2,815 kilometers of coastline, 32% of its entire perimeter. Most coastlines give invaders flat ground, a beachhead, room to spread out. That's what military planners count on. Iran's coast doesn't do that. The moment you step off the water, the mountains begin. Inside those mountains, missile batteries built into caves, tucked into blind spots, recessed into rock faces that swallow radar signatures, positions that satellites and drones frequently cannot find. An enemy fleet approaching from the sea doesn't just face the Iranian Navy. It faces a coastline that shoots back from positions it cannot see, cannot map, and cannot neutralize before the first salvo lands. By land, mountains, deserts, marshlands. By sea, Hormuz as the choke point, then a coastline that becomes an ambush. Iran didn't design any of this. It just lives there, and it has spent decades quietly turning nature's blueprint into something far more lethal than nature ever intended. But there's still one layer most people completely miss. Something that has nothing to do with mountains or missiles, and it might actually be the most dangerous layer of all. The country that should have broken. Iran is not one people, not even close. Inside those mountain walls live Persians, Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, Baloch, Turkmen, and smaller tribes beyond those, each with their own language, their own centuries-old culture, their own grievances, not just with the government, but with each other. Some of these tensions go back hundreds of years. Blood feuds, land disputes, bitter historical memory that no government decree has ever fully erased. On paper, this is a catastrophic vulnerability. Any foreign power looking to destabilize Iran doesn't need to invade. They just need to find the right group, whisper the right words, and light the match. And they've tried, repeatedly. When Saddam Hussein launched his invasion in September 1980, this was exactly the calculation he made. The Islamic Revolution was barely a year old. The military was in disarray. The government was still finding its feet. And most importantly, Saddam believed Iran's Arab population in the southwest would switch sides, that the Kurds would seize the moment, that the whole fragile structure would splinter under pressure. He was wrong in a way that cost him 8 years and 1 million lives. What happened instead was something that outside powers keep underestimating over and over again, no matter how many times history shows them the result. When Iran is attacked from outside, the internal fractures seal. The groups that were protesting the government the week before picked up weapons to defend the country the week after. Shia Islam became the umbrella, not a perfect one, not a comfortable one, but a powerful enough one to pull almost every faction under it when the alternative was foreign occupation. The war that Saddam Hussein expected to last a few weeks dragged on for 8 years. Iraqi forces pushed deep into Iranian territory in the early months, and then watched, confused and horrified, as the Iranians pushed them back. Not just the military, civilians, volunteers, people who had been on opposite sides of internal arguments, standing in the same trench. Saddam got nothing, not a single inch of Iranian land at the end of it. 1 million casualties, and he was back where he started, the trap inside the trap. This is the part that should genuinely unsettle anyone who thinks carefully about Iran's geopolitical situation. The multi-ethnic structure that looks like a weakness, that every outside analyst points to and says this is where it breaks, is actually a trap. Because any invader who enters Iran doesn't just face one group defending their country. They face every group defending their country, even groups that despise each other under normal circumstances. The British understood this implicitly during the colonial era. While they were administering vast stretches of South Asia, reorganizing borders, installing governors, running entire subcontinent economies, they never made Iran a colony. They knew the geography was a problem, but they also knew the people were a deeper problem. You can't co-opt a country where every faction would rather fight you together than tolerate you alone. Donald Trump has publicly and repeatedly called on the Iranian people to overthrow their own government. He does this because he understands, or his advisors understand, that military conquest of Iran is not a serious option. The only version of regime change that could work is one that comes from inside. Turn the fractures into fault lines. Make the internal tensions unbearable enough that the country does the work for you. It's a sophisticated strategy, but it keeps running into the same problem. The Iranian government, whatever its failures, and there are many, and they are severe, has spent 45 years conditioning its population to read external pressure as an existential threat. Every sanction, every strike, every speech from Washington or Tel Aviv becomes another piece of evidence for the narrative the government has been building since 1979. They want to destroy us, and the only thing standing between you and them is this flag. In December 2025, protests erupted that became the largest since the Islamic Revolution. Over 7,000 people dead, a country visibly, painfully fracturing from within. And yet, the government is still standing. Because even populations that hate their government often hate foreign intervention more. This is the psychological trap at the heart of Iran's resilience. The more pressure applied from outside, the more the inside holds together. The more the inside holds together, the more pressure gets applied. And the cycle continues, each turn of it making the country simultaneously weaker domestically and harder to break from the outside. It is, in the most literal sense, a system designed to survive. But there's one final layer. The one that ties all of this together. The reason why even if you somehow got past the mountains, past Hormuz, past the coastline, past the ethnic unity, you would still lose. Let's say you've decided to do it anyway. You've studied the mountains. You've planned around Hormuz. You've wargamed the coastal missile batteries. You've read every intelligence report on ethnic tensions and decided the internal fractures are exploitable enough. You've built the coalition, secured the funding, briefed the generals. You're going in. And that's exactly when Iran's final, most silent weapon activates. The one that requires no soldiers, no missiles, no government orders. The land itself, the labyrinth. Iran is 1.6 million square kilometers. It's larger than the entire Western European landmass west of Germany. It is not a country you can capture. It is a country you can only drown in. Military strategists have a term for this: strategic depth. The concept is simple and absolutely brutal in its implications. The deeper an invading army pushes into a country, the longer its supply lines become. The longer the supply lines, the more vulnerable they are. Fuel convoys stretching hundreds of kilometers through mountain passes. Ammunition chains running through terrain that locals have navigated for centuries and foreigners have never mapped properly. Every kilometer forward is another kilometer of exposure behind you. Iran has more strategic depth than almost any country on earth that has ever been a serious military target. And here's what makes it worse for any would-be invader. Tehran isn't on the border. Neither is Isfahan. Neither is Mashhad. Iran's major cities, its political centers, its population hubs, the places you'd actually need to control to claim any kind of victory, are buried deep inside the interior, surrounded by the same mountains and deserts that stopped everyone else. Protected not by walls that can be bombed, but by distance and terrain that simply consumes armies. By the time a foreign force fought its way to the outskirts of Tehran, assuming it somehow managed that, it would be operating thousands of kilometers from its own supply base, in hostile mountainous terrain, against a population that has been fighting on that ground for generations, with stretched logistics, exhausted soldiers, and no clear endpoint in sight. This is not a hypothetical. This is exactly what happened to every force that ever tried. The pattern nobody wants to admit. The Romans couldn't hold it. The Arabs absorbed it culturally, but couldn't erase it politically. The Mongols, the most devastating military force the medieval world ever produced. The army that leveled Baghdad and rewrote the map of Asia, swept through Iran and found that even total destruction couldn't permanently subjugate it. The British, at the absolute peak of imperial power, running a quarter of the world's surface, they got influence in Iran. Oil contracts signed under duress. But a colony? Never. The cost of actually holding Iran was higher than anything Iran could give them. The only time Iran was occupied in the modern era was 1941, and it required Britain and Russia invading simultaneously, with inside cooperation from the Shah's own son, under full wartime conditions. Two of the greatest military powers on earth. And even then, the occupation immediately triggered civil unrest and a political crisis that took years to contain. That is what success looks like against Iran. What this all means right now. America knows this. Israel knows this. Every serious military planner in every serious government knows this. Airstrikes, assassinations, sanctions, cyber attacks, all possible, all already happening. But conquest? Regime change by foreign boots on Iranian ground? The geography says no. The coastline says no. The strait says no. 600 years of failed attempts say no. This is why Trump keeps directing his speeches at the Iranian people rather than threatening invasion. Because the people are the only door that hasn't been tried and failed yet. Every other door is sealed, not by the government, but by the country itself. Iran's most powerful weapon was never its missiles, never its nuclear program, never its proxy networks across the region. It is the ground beneath its people's feet, mountains that existed before the first empire tried to cross them. A strait the modern world cannot function without. The sheer, suffocating, unconquerable size of a country that has spent 600 years proving one thing. You can pressure Iran. You can wound it. but you cannot end it. And in every war room where this conversation is happening right now, they already know that. The question isn't, can we defeat Iran? The question is, what do we do with a country we can't defeat? Nobody has a good answer yet.